So this is an important day for sovereignty in Australia. It's an important day for ensuring that Australia's national interest is protected.
The federal government's move today to grab the legal power to quash agreements with foreign governments made by state governments, local councils and universities was seen universally as one directed at China, and specifically at a deal signed by Victorian Premier Dan Andrews to be part of China's so-called Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI, a controversial scheme that allows the Chinese to buy into massive infrastructure projects around the world.
Well, all these laws are about China, are they not?
No, these laws are about Australia's sovereign national interests. That's what
your biggest concern is China, is it not?
My biggest concern is Australia's national sovereign interests.
If the Prime Minister's got the time to be focused on these matters, that's fine. That's entirely a matter for him. I don't. Presumably this approach will include, quite soon, a very detailed list of alternative trading arrangements, alternative free trade agreements, alternative markets. I'll leave that to the PM to announce.
Australia has become much more aggressive about calling out Chinese attempts to influence and infiltrate politics and policy in Australia. But former senior Defence and Foreign Affairs official Alan Beam questions how these new proposals are supposed to address this.
There may be a case, maybe China's ambition and expansionism and all of the things that the government is challenging China on, maybe they're true. But at this point, we have no idea of what projects might be contemplated. We do know that it's not going to address the way in which the private sector works with China, and yet that's where most of the business is.
If the policy ambition of this new announcement, which would also see the vetting of any new agreements, is unclear, consider the domestic political context. This announcement was made by a government rendered impotent by state government decisions over borders and quietly furious at the Victorian government over its handling of the coronavirus. Shazam! An announcement which literally reasserts Canberra's sovereignty over policy and the states.
We need to ensure that Australia, not just at a federal level, but across all of our governments, speak with one voice, consistent with the national interest as set out in Australia's foreign policy as determined by the federal government.
There are lots of people besides Dan Andrews who are not happy about the decision. Former Liberal Premier of Western Australia Colin Barnett is one of them. Barnett signed an agreement with China in 2011. Today he labelled the proposed bill as, quote, appalling. Potentially causing even more problems than the veto on state government deals is the inclusion of universities in these proposed new laws. There are literally thousands of agreements made by Australian universities with governments, government agencies and other universities around the world, with more than 10,000 publicly listed by Universities Australia in 2018 alone. Universities seem to have got caught in the political crossfire between the federal government and the states.
I can't think of universities that I know in advanced democracies around the world that are subject to this level of intervention in their normal, if you like, affairs in terms of the way they conduct their relationships with universities and other agencies across the world. It's the sort of thing you'd see in a very authoritarian dictatorship, and so it's quite surprising.
The proposal raises questions about the future of the sort of crucial collaboration we have seen in the current pandemic.
China identified the genome. It was that information was made available. The Peter Doherty Institute at the University of Melbourne, the first in the world to sequence that, makes it available. It underpins research which is going into vaccines and ways of dealing with COVID-19.
Universities already cooperate with the Defence and National Security Establishment to monitor foreign interference in the academic world.
So we are fully sensitive to the need in these rather tense geopolitical times to be worried about national security and sensitive to these matters.
There are a few worries about this, I think. One of them in particular being the retrospectivity part of it. I suspect that once everybody starts looking at that and thinking about it, sovereign risk issues will arise, and the government will want to be extremely careful, I think, that in embarking upon something which doesn't look as though it's necessary, it doesn't create very, very much more substantial problems, not only in the relationship with China, but in our broader image as we operate in Asia more generally.
Hi, I'm Lee Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 730's stories, they are on the left of your screen. And tap on the button below to subscribe and get the latest from ABC News.